Okadi here. Today we are on our last Ranger Ascendancy, Warden. On Warden, we are running a Perforate build with a self-cast Assassin's Mark, Blood Rage, and Unbound Avatar. This is again a 1 div total investment on our gear, and then we are running an Abomination T17 map. Now this one is Cursed with Elemental Weakness. Monsters have more life, monsters have more attack speed, monsters have frenzy charges, and avoid poison, impale, and bleeding doesn't affect us, and buffs on players expire 100% faster. That kind of sucks from the tincture standpoint, but we should be fine on this. Let's go ahead and run this and see how it does. We are going to be taking a lot more damage than normal, and things are going to die a little bit slower. Playstyle on this is pretty straightforward. Just press your tinctures. Tinctures will automatically turn off after 12 stacks. Then you'll get a buff that will maintain the tinctures for a period of time beyond that. And then the tinctures will go on cooldown. When they're off cooldown again, press tinctures again. It's very little maintenance on what you need to do for the tinctures, which is what we like. The damage on the build is pretty solid. Recovery on the build is pretty solid. You're just going to go through the map and kind of smash face on everything. Clear on the build is good. Perforate is not a screen-wide skill, but it's such a tremendous amount of damage at a low budget that it's hard to pass up on the opportunity to use it. When you have big groups like this, you can turn on Unbound and do a tremendous amount of damage. And as you can see, it kills everything just fine, rares and magic targets alike. If you do have a tanky target that is living for a period of time, then you can use your Assassin's Mark to target him, do additional damage to him, or you can just turn on Unbound and start deleting everything. And we have a fairly high uptime on Unbound because we have a tremendous number of hits from Perforate, and so we can easily hit the 0.2 per second attacks needed for triggering the most amount of elemental elements applied, so we can get the Unbound charges back faster. But as you can see, clear is good. Let's go ahead and work our way towards the bosses. If you wanted to, with Perforate, you can also run a skill like Blood and Sand to increase your damage versus single target, and increase your clear versus multiple targets. We're not running that on the build right now, but that is an option. You would want to have a little bit better gear for that because you don't want to give up the life necessary to reserve that unless you just have better life. Oh, these temporal proxy guys are annoying. Now, one of the hardest things to solve on this character was to get our defensive layers up. Warden, unfortunately, does not have a lot of good, strong, cheap defensive layers available to it, and your Ascendancy tree defensive layers, such as Barkskin, are virtually worthless unless you are running strictly an evasion-based build, which we are not. And so getting these defensive layers up did take a little bit of a jigsaw puzzle to put together, but I think in the end it has turned out really nicely. We've got really solid defensive layers and some really powerful cooldowns for dealing damage. I think that's good enough for clear. Let's go ahead and find the boss here. Hello, rubber bands. We are just attacking periodically to keep our leech up so we don't get clipped, and to keep our fortify up. We do have melee hits fortify. So fortification is very important. Let's get in here and kill the bosses. Now we're looking for Dodri first. That's who we want to kill first. So we're going to dump all of our cooldowns into her to get her dead so that we can kill the monoliths that she spawns whenever she dies. As you can see, our target damage versus single is very strong. And this is with Unbound Avatar and Tinctures active. And then once we go into Punishment, she takes increased damage at low health. And then we spike again for damage there. We have a Calling Strike on our Leap Slam, so we can call her once she gets low on health. And then we'll come and work on these monoliths. And we want to find the red one first, because the red one makes us take increased damage. And we take increased damage as well as the bosses are doing more damage to us, because Dodri Ghosted puts out a really nasty slam and some chaos damage, which we're not fully resistant against. And so we want to kill this thing as fast as possible. So keep your Blood Rage up, keep your Tinctures going, and then use your Unbound on cooldown and then die. That's Slam. Portals are a defense. Unfortunately, Warden has to use those too. But we'll just get back in there and finish off this red portal. And once this thing is dead, we should be fine. Once the red portal is dead, move on to the green or the purple one. Both of these just reduce your damage output, but survivability should be much better now with the red portal dead. And we may kill Chevron before all of the portals are finished, and that's probably fine. She always likes to get into the mix. Oof. That Malagaro degen is also very nasty. Unfortunately, we cannot Assassin's Mark these monoliths. They appear to be immune to curses. We'll hit our Unbound here. Our Tincture's going. And then move on to the next portal, or monolith. Once this monolith goes down, we'll kill Chevron, because her abilities are easier to dodge when she is ghosted than Malagaro's are. And again, you're hitting Unbound on cooldown, and your Tinctures whenever they're available. And maintain your Blood Rage as much as you can. Blood Rage is the least important one. Get our curse onto Malagaro, and then that is the ability that we need to dodge from Chevron. Throws out a tremendous amount of damage right there whenever she does that. But once we get Malagaro dead, the final boss is the easiest part of this encounter. He does like to run around, so you do have to stay on top of him. Oh, we died mid leap slam there. That's so much damage. And big challenge is down. The rest of the boss fight is super easy. Just don't stand in puddles. As you can see, this guy is just gonna melt. He dies more quickly for a couple of reasons. One, he's just generally easier. But two, our perforate can shotgun on the target. The larger the target is, the more shotguns we get. That red puddle is the worst one. Now we're going to hit Unbound here again in a second, and then he'll just die. And T17 complete on the Warden. Like I said, Warden is really lacking in defenses, but we did a lot of things to help cover some of those defenses so that we could be more successful on the character. Let's go ahead and take a look at our POB. So first things first, let's look at our items. We have a foil that we've been using for a lot of these 1-div builds. This is a very easy foil to shop for. You simply go over to trade. And you are looking for an empty prefix on a one-handed sword. Now, we don't have any sword-specific nodes on the... We don't have any sword-specific... I can't talk this morning. We do not have any sword-specific nodes on the Warden. So you can use any one-handed melee weapon. Empty prefix modifier, some elemental DPS. Set our budget at 20 chaos. And then just sort by LE DPS. Whatever comes at the top is what you should buy. There's an axe right here. This thing is freaking phenomenal for 3 chaos. If we used this axe, for example, we would come throw it in our spreadsheet. We would go and we would runecraft on some fire damage because we want to match the element that's on there so it's easier to hit Trinity. So we'd come over here and just do a mid-tier fire damage on it. We would craft a hits can't be evaded, which is 3 exalted orbs, about 36 chaos. And so our weapon is the biggest cost of this build right here. But we go ahead and slot all that in on our axe. And if we equipped that axe, our damage would be just about where it is with this nice little fancy foil. And so very, very easy to get very, very good weapons for very, very cheap. Just make sure that you are searching for them properly. If you wanted better survivability, then you could obviously use this claw right here. This life per hit is really, really strong. Or if you wanted more damage, you can go for a foil that has the increased global crit strike multiplier. For our shield, either buy a shield with recover life on block, usually like a couple chaos, or buy a shaper base shield and then just alt spam it until you get it. You can usually pick those up for a couple of chaos as well. For our helmet, we are just using a chaos res with an empty suffix so that we can craft chaos res on it so that we can get our chaos res up. And then we want life on the front of it. Outside of that, just get some useful stats. Ham's Heart, just get something with a useful corruption. Thunder Fist, ideally you would have something with a useful corruption. Windscream Greaves, something with a useful corruption. These are all like 1 to 5 chaos items. Carnage Heart, you want to allocate Testudo on Anoint. Tamings, you just want some cheap tamings here. You can re-roll the prefix with Blessed Orbs. And then for our belt, we just want a triple elemental res belt with life on it. We are running a tincture with attack speed, a tincture with crit multi. We are running an amethyst flask, a jade flask, and a granite flask. Just roll these things. It takes some alt and it takes some time, but rolling these items is very, very straightforward. Your flask, the most important part is get charges when you're hit by an enemy, and then regeneration is the benchcraft, and then evasion and armor are both really good. For our jewels back here, we're going to search for these just like we would any other item. That is a generic damage increase, and this one, we want life on everything as well. And then we're also using this to hit some of our strength nodes so that we don't have to take strength nodes on the tree. To search for these items, you just go to trade, find best, execute the search, and then we're going to use this as kind of our base search tool. So we're going to show filters and come down here and say, and we know we want strength, and we know we want increase max life. And then we'll have to kick some implicits off because it'll be too complicated to search with all of this stuff in there. But these are the most important things. So, and total strength and total max life. Maybe you need int. You can put total int here, whatever it is you need. Search and then sort by sum. There's 131 matched. This one is the best damage one. This one is the second best damage one. This one is a ridiculously good deal with 12% attack speed with swords. And that's because we are using a sword. If you had an axe in slot here instead of a sword, then this would automatically find the best for your axe. And so this is a very, very good tool. You have to understand that it's only good for generic items, though. It is not very useful if you're specifically looking for something for the build, but it's very good for generic searching of the items. For our skills, we are running Self-Cast Assassin's Mark, cast when damage taken punishment, just to automate it because we have extra slots. Cast when damage taken Molten Shell, Vitality and Petrified Blood, Leap Slam with Calling Strike, Blood Rage, Tempest Shield with Determination tied to an Internal Blessing, and Perforate with Trinity, Multi-Strike, and Volatility. So this is our primary source of damage. As you can see on our Perforate here, we do have enough overlap between the fire, the cold, and the lightning to be able to hit Trinity relatively easily, and Perforate hits a tremendous number of times. We're doing approximately 1.5 million DPS with Tinctures up, which is all of the time, assuming we get at least 3 overlaps on the spikes. If we get 7 overlaps on the spikes, we're doing 3.6 million DPS, and an Unbound Avatar, we're doing 6.4. So on a 1 div budget, this is an absolutely absurd amount of damage for this character to have, and still have the defensive layers that it does have. On our tree, we are taking life, 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 everywhere we can get life. We even snuck in here to get this life here. We're never, probably not on full life very often. Well, we're never on full life because we're reserving. So the 10% chance to spell suppress does not matter. The 10% life and 18% evasion does. For damage, we are going into Tincture and Tincture here because those are such a tremendous portion of our damage. We're obviously taking Tincture support on our tree over here. We are taking Oath of Spring for the extra shock damage and Avatar of the Wilds on our tree down here. And then we have Forces of Nature with Inversion. And so these are the only 3 damaging nodes we have on our tree. And as you can see, that this is more than enough to get the job done. We are taking Spell Suppress everywhere we can on the tree, so we are Spell Suppress capped with no spell suppression on our gear. We're taking Blood-Soaked Blades so that we can use our Tinctures while we are in Blood Magic. And we are taking Tincture Mastery to automatically deactivate them when we reach 12 mana burn. And then at 12 mana burn, we get this to last us for additional time beyond the original duration of the tincture, 6 seconds for 12 mana burns. And so this has very good synergy with this to make the tinctures feel much better in the automated standpoint. For jewels, we just have the generic jewels that we talked about. And then we are taking melee hits fortify over here. This is absolutely necessary. The Warden just does not have enough defensive layers without it. If you wanted to scale this character up a little bit more, you would want to continue to improve your weapon, and you would definitely want to just get more life. All of your gear needs to have more life on it, better corruptions on it. There's not a lot of upward mobility in this setup right now. Ideally, on a higher budget, we'd probably run like a Doppelganger's Guise here instead of Kaom's Heart, and then get a 6-link there, and then replace these gloves with something that has life on it and some offensive stats. But all in all, I think the Warden did fairly good for the T17 completion. If you have any questions over any of this, please leave a comment down below, or come by Twitch and ask. Some of these interactions are a little bit more complicated, and so I can't always answer them easily in comments. I'm happy to go into a little bit more detail or in-depth answer. Hey, peace.